This is Cervia. Today is the 15th of March 2016, and as you can possibly tell, I found a great place to park my van. It is bang in the centre of town, and unfortunately you wouldn't be able to park here in summer because it's not allowed, but at this time of the year they don't mind too much. So I've left my van here, and now let's have a look at what we can see here. In fact, we can start off with the immediate surroundings, because we've got this tower here and we've got these big buildings here. Cervia is known for salt production. It's a historic place where salt has been produced for hundreds of years, and these big buildings we've got here are storehouses for salt, which were built in the 18th century. And we've got this tower here which is 22 meters high. It was once at the seafront. In fact, in Roman days the sea was over in that direction. By the end of the 18th century we had the sea round here somewhere, and it's just gone back ever since then. Now this tower itself and the old town actually dates to the end of the 17th century, and this was once even used as a lighthouse as well as for defensive purposes. And you can tell from the way the walls at the bottom sort of they slope inwards, that's a sign that it was built in times when gunpowder had already been invented, but so you could have a cannonball with a bit of stone or metal or something, and that would hit the wall and bounce off. Well, that was the idea, of course. And wonderful day it is. Unfortunately, also a little bit on the cold side, and it was pretty cold in the van last night. Now down there, about a kilometre in that direction, we've got the sea. So you can see how much the sea has retreated. I'll have a look at that a bit later. And here we've got the main piazza. And you can also stick your van in the piazza. Out of season, in season, you've got to leave the van in a place which is marked for campers. There's 3 areas here that I know of. There's a little bit of a hike in though, but all the same, it's not too bad. I've just walked in now. So I came from the thermal area. There's a camper place there, €10 a night, or 12 if you want electricity. If you park around here, you have got, there's actually free internet. Not particularly good, but it'll do. Well, it's free, so what do you expect? And this canal here leads to the salt pans, which are a couple of kilometres in that direction. So I'll be seeing that in this film as well. I say we'll be seeing that in this film. I haven't actually seen the raw material yet, so I hope we'll be seeing that in this film. And the tourist office. It is right here, should you need to get any information. This is quite fascinating from a historical point of view. It's the sort of place you could actually, if you didn't already know something about it, you could even miss it, because a new town was built here. And when I say new town, a bit like places like Inverness, Inverness, Bath, and those are Georgian towns. This was built a little bit before then, in fact 100 years before then. We'll have a look at that a bit later. I think it's amazing. Let's have a look at the view from the top. I'm now at the top of the tower. Now the tower is actually off bounds to public, but if you actually own a website or you're a publisher or something like that, they let you in. So I'm now here, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the town. I've got this canal which leads to the salt pans. On the salt pans are at the very back there. You can possibly make out where the town ends, but it may not be very clear from here. And beyond that there's a huge area where salt is still produced, but it's also a natural reserve. So you've got things like flamingos, bitterns, shelduck and other wildlife there. Now I'm coming around here to the left a bit, and what we've got here, we've got the new town. Now Cervia was once in the middle of the salt pan area. It was moved here as a new town because being in the middle of what was effectively a marsh, it was malarial, it was not healthy, and this was then part of the Papal States. In 1690, the Pope agreed, I think it was Innocent XII, if it wasn't, I'll write it down below, to move the town from its former position to here, and that was using the same material. So there's nothing left of the old Cervia, and the new Cervia was built using the same stone and same materials. Now what we have here, we can see it in this block which is going around here, and on the outside you had the people who worked in the salt pans. Now whereas the flats they lived in were owned by the papacy, you could actually get the right to live in it for life, and that could be then it was inherited, and that didn't finish until I believe it was a nationalisation in around, it was either 1959 and 1965, so but it was well into the 20th century. So you'd have the now the flats themselves, you could have one family got one room, so you'd there was quite a lot of people, but that was normal in those times. So I mean, if you had like 8 kids or something, that'd be 10 of you living in one room, but you know, at least you had a roof over your heads. So the another problem would be for the salt workers. They can only work in the summer, but they have to live all the year round. So somewhat difficult circumstance to live in. So the workers would be on the outside, but inside you'd have people living who were better off. For example, either the people who had some kind of business, or they were some kind of other production that they were involved in, and of course the bishops. Now obviously the bishops didn't want to mix with the riffraff too much, but in this case they'd have had to, because the gates they had to go to get in and out, they'd have had to pass where the poorer people lived. Absolutely outstanding piazza, which I shall show you a little bit later. Now being on the eastern side, we can see what is one of the largest piazzas, I believe, in Romagna, and on Thursday there's a market there. And coming around here we can see the sea, but we can also get an idea of how much the land has actually taken from the sea. It's now where I was at the end of the 17th century. This was the seafront, and now all this land has been, I wouldn't say reclaimed, maybe it has been reclaimed, and the sea's just withdrawn a bit. You see this in other places, for example in the Po Delta. In the Delta you expect this land to be reclaimed. You can see other area, Mississippi Delta is a very huge area which is now protruding into the sea. Now, until relatively recent times, this canal was the canal which fed the salt pans. Now there's other pipes and things doing the same. And I'll take it down to the sea. I'm now looking to the northern side. On each side of the canal there's a large warehouse for salt, and from here the salt would have been, of course, deposited here from the salt pans, and then it would have been reloaded onto ships and taken elsewhere if it wasn't taken elsewhere by land. Now you can see I've got my van down there. This isn't a motorhome parking, but for all intensive purposes vans can be left there outside of the peak season. In peak season you've got to put it in a proper place, and there's signs to that effect elsewhere. Now if we look to the north there, we can see the first residential tower block in Italy. We've got planning permission in 1959, and Milano Marittimo designed as a place where people from, above all, Milan would come here, spend their holidays, and from the layout where the town was built, so it's typical again of a new town, but this is a new town from the end of the 19th century, and above all in the period after the Second World War, when tourists started to come here in large numbers. I think it's a brilliant place for my van. It's completely can't be used all year round. So we can see the tower now from below. So built in 1691, though the roof was put on later, and it was open at one stage. And it was a lighthouse. Now if we come down here, we've got that's the Archangel Michael killing the devil. So the devil's dead, so I don't really see why people are frightened of him, but I'm sure there's a perfectly logical explanation to all this. So it's bad news if you're a Satanist, unless the devil rose from the dead or something. So this was the first part of the new town to be built, because the rest of it was actually dates from about 1692. One of the problems here was that of pirates, and this is something you get really more to the south. This is put up there as a defence against pirates. I don't know if there were pirate attacks here, but certainly you can see, for example, in Sicily or many other places, you've got the seaside villages, actually hilltop villages, and the new parts of the town are next to the sea. When people stopped being frightened of pirate attacks, of course, the worst pirates were us Europeans. Say places in Africa and in the Middle East which were not inhabited. The coastal areas were not inhabited for centuries because of attacks from pirates, that's to say slave traders and or crusaders or whatever. It just wasn't safe to a certain extent, lesser so, but in Europe. Even though as far as the British Isles, there were villages in, I think it was Cornwall, but it may have been Dorset, which were attacked in the 17th century by pirates from North Africa. They'd take everybody off as slaves and then they're getting sold in markets in North Africa. So it wasn't just a one-way journey, but it was mainly Europeans who were doing this. So you see the form of the new town of Cervia, which takes a little bit of the form of a fortification. That's the sort of thing that's going through my mind when I first saw it. Statues in here since 2008. Angelica, it's a symbol of love. I think it's a symbol of love for the city. And here, we've got one of the gates into the new town. So this was built after the new town was built, and that was done so that people who were actually staying there could get to the sea. Although it's a bit of a hike. So we see here the houses where the salt workers lived, which were given in perpetuity, I should say for use in perpetuity, by the papacy. Some of them have been renovated, others haven't. Towards the bottom they haven't been renovated, and some of the places below the basements were used as stores for the stuff that they needed to work with. And coming into the centre, we have the places where the wealthier people live. One of the problems here would still have been malaria, but the architect who built the town thought of that and left places where air could circulate a bit more freely. And there's a piadina, the local bread speciality, and you can see other films I've done on piadina. And here we have the town hall. As always, huge amounts of names on the wall memorial. This is the main square. Now, this square was made pedestrian free comparatively recently, and the asphalt was taken up and the stones were put down in its place. But I think this is absolutely, it's outstanding. So this is a new town built between approximately 1692 and 1702. And what a brilliant job they did of it. So I'm going here, so I've got an appointment. So I shall be returning to filming a little bit later. Salt Museum is down in that direction, definitely worth seeing. On the left here, we've got the Salt Museum. So you can see in there a bit how salt was produced in the past. I know it's closed today, but I was in there yesterday and it's quite impressive. But only takes up a small part of the entire building. Other parts of the building are used for other things. For example, there's something today with some painting or something. I was in there for a conference last night. You can see how big it is. Pack a lot of salt in there. And in there. So this year, from the 16th to the 20th of March, there is a squid festival. It's starting tomorrow, Wednesday. So I shall go to that. This is Via Roma, and this leads to the sea. There's a bit of a breeze here, possibly from the sea. So here, it's free at the moment to park here. It's €6 for 12 hours in season. And the season starts on the 1st of April, which is in 2 weeks' time. But right next to this parking spot is the beach. Once you walk through there, of course. The port here is said to be one of the best on the Adriatic. When I say it is said, I don't know really whose says it is, because I hate using the passive voice. but it may be one of the best, let's say, on the Adriatic coast. It is used for some fishing mainly. It's for boats which go out for enjoyment, tourist boats. There's also some mussel which are actually farmed here, which is in the salt pan area, not in the area which is very salty. First view of the sea in 2016. Same sea which I had the last view of in 2015, the Adriatic. So that was at Rimini, which is just the south of here.
This is our saline. I mean, it is 827 hectares as a surface, and it's half. I mean, it's land built by men for having salt. But so we are now going for about 350 meters up to this direction, it's south direction. But our saline extending about 2 kilometers and a half towards inland, 3 kilometers in south direction, and 3 kilometers in north direction towards Ravenna. And this area with these lakes, it's not involved in salt production and evaporation of water, but it's left by itself.